Do you remember the little kid game, Chutes and Ladders?
Yeah.
Chutes and Ladders, if you remember, you just kind of meander slowly.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, you hit a ladder and you shoot up a level or two. And every once in a while, if you're not careful, you'll hit a chute, a slide, and you'll slide down. That's what a lot of leadership feels like to me. It's not all up and to the right. It's just long, consistent faithfulness. And that's what our story's been.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Framework Leadership, where we talk with leaders from across the globe, explore their leadership techniques, strategies for guiding their organizations to achieve success and sustainability. I'm your host, Ken Engel, president of Southeastern University.
And I'm your co-host, Michael Steiner, Senior Vice President for Advancement and Innovation.
And today's show, we are excited to welcome Dr. Jason Burns. Dr. Burns serves as the lead pastor of Access Church here in Lakeland, Florida, also the founder and CEO of Radiant Printing. Jason is a three-time alum, right?
Triple graduate, baby.
Triple, undergraduate grad program, and then you just recently completed your doctoral degree in ministry here at Southeastern University.
I did. I'm a forever fan of SEU. Every time I talk to you, I tell you, I've got your back.
Absolutely.
I love this school, ride or die. I'm all in.
Question is, do you have all three diplomas? All of them all up on the background?
No one cares about the first two when you get the third
Right,
one.
that's true.
Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's very
exactly.
true. That's true.
So, that's good. Apart from all that, I mean, Jason is a dear friend to me and to this university, and it's great to have you here with us today.
I'm so honored. I really do love this place.
Well, let's start off by talking about the importance of rest. Throughout your leadership, throughout your ministry, you've had a passion for focusing on the Sabbath and how important that is in our lives. Not only are you the pastor of a growing church and CEO of this incredible, successful printing company, but you also have a family, a wife, you have 3 kids, you're busy, you travel a lot. I mean, you're speaking everywhere, and you have a lot of responsibility under your care. So how do you rest?
Well, the truth is, I'm passionate about it now because I wasn't passionate about it early on in life, and I really messed up. Like, one of the stories that I remember is the early days of Radiant Printing, my company. I was pastoring our church. My family was growing, so we had young kids at home. I started a company, and it just caught traction. And it was just me in my living room, so I'd go to work at the church all day, come home, have dinner with the family, get the kids, get them to bed, and then it would start working. And you would work from 8 until the job was done. And that could be 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. And I did that 6 days a week for about 2 years, to the point where I just so exhausted myself. The story I always remember is there was a time for my 10th anniversary, so 9 years ago, my wife and I went to Hawaii together, and I didn't have any employees at that time, and I had worked myself into oblivion before that trip. Wow. And I got to the trip, and we're in Hawaii. We're in the place where everybody wants to go. Right. And on the 3rd day of the trip, my wife and I were walking along Waikiki Beach, and she did this weird thing where she ran and jumped ahead of me, and she grabbed me by the shoulders, and she said, "Hi." And I said, "Hi." And she goes, No, hi. And I said, "Hi." She goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "You're finally here." I said, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "You finally made it here."
Wow.
And the funny thing is, I had been so busy, so consumed. In Scripture, when Jesus says things like, "Do not worry about tomorrow," that word worry literally means to be split, fractured. And so I was physically there with her, but my mind was somewhere else on all the work and all the things. So I learned in that season that there's really only 2 ways to live this life: to do it your way or Jesus's way. Right. And the pathway of Jesus is always about leading from rest, not leading to rest. So everything I lead in my life at this point, we've tried to structure it around health, taking care of our team, making sure that we're doing this the right way for all the right reasons.
And how do you I guess, discipline yourself to put rest into your daily? I mean, I'd like to hear how you do it, because again, it's all a part of holistic growth in your life: physical, spiritual, mental. It's a component. So how does all that happen?
Well, I think it starts with the right mindset. And I think for a lot of us, especially when you're high capacity or you're busy or you're a leader, you tend to buy into a lie that the whole world revolves around you, that you're the one keeping all the plates spinning. And what rest does is rest reminds you that God is ultimately the one who's taking care of everything for you.
Yeah.
And so it's funny, because I think for many of us, we're afraid that if we stop, we're afraid that if we rest, the whole train's going to go off track, that we're going to lose everything we've built. And the real truth is God's way is the best way.
Yeah.
So how that looks practically for me is I've structured my life so that Sunday's a work day. I preach on Sundays. And I go to work on Mondays because for me, if I'm going to be tired, I'd like to give my tired energy to work so that I can give my actually rested time to my family and to things that matter more. So I work Sunday through Thursday. Friday, I'm just unavailable. Friday, I'm off the clock. Friday, I'm not working. Friday, I rest. And then Saturday turns into a work day for me, kind of in that, like I have my family time. And then Saturday night, I lock down and get myself ready for Sunday. Right. What I have found is if I'll actually take Fridays off, if I won't think about stuff, if I won't work on things, that my Sundays get exponentially better for me. And I just think that when you do things God's way, you get God's results.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you fill that Friday with? I mean, what does that actually look like on that part of it?
So in this season of my life, date nights are hard. My kids are busy. My oldest son, Joey's he's in his senior year now. He'll be here 1 year from now, which means neither of you can retire for 5 years. I love you both too much.
Deal.
We'll try not to.
I need 5 years out of you.
Should the Lord tarry, right? There we go. Yeah.
So our life's busy. They're in sports. My daughter's in ballet. My daughter's in a play right now. Yeah. So nights are difficult for me and my wife to get away for dates. And so we've turned Friday into our date day. And Friday's fun. We wake up, we go to breakfast somewhere. I usually follow her around Target for about 45 minutes to an hour and try to keep the bill as low as possible, which is a losing effort. Absolutely.
I know that one, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what it is. And so sometimes we'll go to the beach, sometimes we'll go to Tampa or Orlando and have a nice date, but I schedule that day around fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Do you think this is a problem? I mean, this whole idea of rest, it seems to be a curse that keeps following around people who are achieving big things. Is it a personality problem? Is it just comes with the mantle that comes on there? I mean, kind of let's think, why is it that people who are in senior leadership struggle with this the most?
Well, let me speak to Christian leaders, first of all. I think ignoring the Sabbath is the only sin we get celebrated for.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, think of the 10 Commandments. Like, if you murder someone, no one's celebrating you. Yeah. Right? But if you break the Sabbath and you achieve a little bit more, you get the award, you get the promotion, you get the raise. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's the only one we're celebrated for. And so I think, first of all, we just need a culture shift. Mm-hmm. I think in the world, the belief is the more we can do, the more we can accomplish. And there's a lot of studies that show that when we actually lead from a place of rest, we can actually accomplish more in less time.
Yeah. Do you think someone has to experience burnout before they truly make that discipline change? Or do you think they truly can shift their mindset before something like that happens?
One of the things I believe about children is that children shouldn't have to walk through hell in order to get to heaven someday. Sure. So do I think in theory people can learn on the front end that yes, Sabbath is God's best? Yeah, I think that's possible. Mm-hmm. Do I think it's going to happen? I think the truth is our culture and our world, they celebrate it. They push us to work more. The person who goes home on time is never really celebrated. Sure. The person who stays late and pulls the extra hours, they're the ones that get the accolades. And so do I think it's possible? Yes. But do I think it's likely? I don't know. Yeah. I think the more driven you are, the more likely you are to push the limits and to try to, honestly burn out.
Does that speak to then as leaders, right? Like if we really want rest to be a priority for people, right? Part of that is reshifting the paradigm of what we're rewarding, right? So if I'm a leader, right, and I'm leading a culture that I want rest to be part of who we are, how do I change my culture so that I'm not rewarding breaking the Sabbath?
That's wonderful. So here's what we've done as a church. We have prioritized health as one of our main goals. So as a church, after our spiritual goals, the next goal is staff health. Because if we're healthy, we're going to reproduce a healthy church culture. Right. So I think part of that is it starts with me. I need to model this. So I come to work on time and I leave on time. I turn down meetings. I've had people leave our church because I won't meet with them at 7:00 on a Tuesday night. Wow. Like my family's my number one ministry. I'm going to go home. Beyond that, we give our staff an incredibly generous time off policy. That's a big deal. And we tell our staff to use it, and we're going to celebrate you for it. Yep. We don't allow rollover days into the next year, so we say use all the days. On top of the days off, we also give our staff additional time throughout the year. So we'll give them the week of Thanksgiving and a week after Christmas. a few weeks ago, we've been in a busy season as our church is gearing up to launch the North Lakeland location. We've been in a very busy season. And in June, I noticed that our staff was just tired. We're sitting around a meeting and everyone was slumped over. And I said, is everybody tired? Because I am. I said, how about this? How about we work hard the next 2 weeks? And then we plan in advance to take 3 weeks from now. Let's take the whole week off. Doesn't count against your days off. Wow. I just love you. And because I love you, I want you to lead from a place of rest. We know we're going to a busy season, so let's go into that rested. I mean, it was amazing. So we do all that. Here's one other thing that we've done that's been a game changer for our church staff. Every staff member has 6 what we call God days. And as a church, this won't apply to every business, I get that. But as a church, here's what I've learned. You can't pour out of what you don't have inside of you. Wow. And so as a church, we've made a decision to say, when you're feeling dry, when you're feeling that you've been working for God and not really being with God, we're giving you a whole work day, and the whole intention of the day is for you to connect with God. So whatever that looks like, if that means going for a walk on the beach, if it means just getting to a quiet place and spending time in prayer, one of the things I like to do is I like to drive the perimeter of our city and just pray, Lord, would you draw people from this whole area to you? Just do something that reconnects your heart to God. And there's a difference between, like, you can take time off and not feel rested. Yeah. So, like, I want to make sure that the condition of our soul is so deeply connected to God that we're leading from a place of rest and that we're not working hard so that we can take a weekend off.
I love it.
So good. Yeah, you mentioned wanting to reach this community, and so let's transition a little bit and talk about Access Church, which is doing just that, having a tremendous impact here in Lakeland, but Central Florida and beyond. Recently, you launched a brand new campus, and want to hear a little bit more about that. It's exciting because it means more growth, it means more creativity, it means more outreach, and ultimately more people coming into relationship with Jesus. So tell us about it.
Well, here's the quick story on Access. We started Access 17 years ago in my living room as a college Bible study for my friends. Wow. And our story in a nutshell is we had this picture of our lives looking like the American dream. Graduated from SCU. You know, our hope was to go be a youth pastor at a big church and then jump to a bigger church and a bigger church and eventually take over for some renowned leader at some mega church. And in the middle of that season of all of our interviewing, my wife was doing her makeup one day and found what felt like a bruise in her leg. She went to the doctor for a routine physical, showed the bruise. The bruise was actually a lump. They did some tests and found that it was stage 2 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So she had to go through 6 months of chemo, 6 months to recover. And in that season, our hearts towards the city of Lakeland really changed. We realized that we had lots of friends who claimed to love God, but had no connection to a church. And I don't know how that gels.
Sure. Right.
So we started a Bible study in my living room for my friends 17 years ago, and it just kept growing. And we were portable for 13 years. Yeah. And a lot of people want to celebrate that. Like, you're awesome. And I'm like, no, that's stupid. No one should do that. And in January of 2020, we announced to our church that we'd finally gotten a building. And then 2020 happened. Right. So we opened the building in March of 2021, and it has been miracle after miracle since that season. We launched it well. Our church has basically tripled in size since then, which is awesome. And what's been amazing is because we had so many years in the dark room of obscurity to develop kind of in hiding, I think that's allowed us to grow without getting unhealthy. Talking about health again. Like, we've been able to grow and keep the things that made Access special. We still love every single person who walks through the doors. We don't see people as objects to build something that we're trying to accomplish. Like, we've been able to stay the same the whole way through. So as our church has grown, we've run out of space, and that's a wonderful problem. And so a couple of years ago, we started praying and looking at a map, and we realized we have hundreds and hundreds of people from our church that drive 20 to 30 minutes or more from North Lakeland to our South Lakeland location. So we said, what if we did it? And through a whole series of miracles, God gave us a building in North Lakeland. It was a former Salvation Army church. We've taken it, we've completely gutted it and renovated it. The most fun thing was a few weeks ago before we launched, we had a night of worship to kind of celebrate and dedicate the building. That church building had been a Salvation Army church. Well, we honored the man, the pastor of that Salvation Army church came. We honored him and his family, and it was so special to watch them walk into the building that had been their church home for years and go, wow. And he was thrilled afterwards. He said, "You're going to use this to reach people that we never could have reached." And so I love that idea of like a kingdom-minded partnership.
Love it. So tell us a little bit about the mechanics of this church. I know in church world and a lot of the leaders that listen to this podcast, they're evaluating growth themselves, right? So what's the different tactics and stuff? So walk us through how you guys are structuring this campus, how and why you kind of decide to structure it that way.
That's awesome. So our goal is unity. Our goal is to be one church that just happens to meet in different rooms. And so Isaiah Board, who has been our youth pastor for years, he was
also a graduate here.
Also a graduate here. I got a lot of them. I mean, I'm telling you, I love SEU. Yeah. Fantastic guy. He and his wife were sensing a stirring in their own hearts, and the timing was providential that we were going to launch this location. So they're our location pastors. And what we have said the whole time is we are going to fight, but we're going to fight for unity. And that's a big deal. We fight to be the same church. So to your question, our structure is going to be that South Lakeland will become our broadcast location. We will do everything in North Lakeland that we do in South Lakeland. We'll have live everything, live worship, live children's ministry, live everything. And then to keep us unified, we will stream the sermon to the locations. The reason we're doing that is if either of you and I were to write a sermon together and preach it, it would be fantastic. You'd do better than me. It would be fantastic, but it would be different. And even if the points were the same and the thoughts were the same, it's just going to be different. So to keep us going the same direction, we've made the decision to leverage technology to reach more people. And what it does for our location pastor is it frees him to be the best pastor without the stress of Sunday coming every 7 days.
That's good.
Got it. And what was, I mean, all that kind of makes sense, but there's lots of other models that you could have gone through. So as you were kind of doing the pros and cons list, why did you arrive at this versus some of the other models that could have gone there?
Well, there's lots of good models. And just for us, again, when we thought through the lens of unity, this is what keeps us the most on the same page.
Got it. That makes sense. Okay.
You know, we're system thinkers, so we kind of work through how do we accomplish the big picture with all the separate things that we've got to keep going. So how do you balance, you're very creative, innovative. How do you balance the creative freedom needed to start, you know, something new like this, branching out with a new campus, and the practical realities of managing resources, managing deadlines, all of those kinds of things?
How do I manage? The answer might be not well.
Okay, got it.
You know, it's uncharted territory for us. And so we've just worked together to figure it out. And again, I think it comes back to we need to fight for unity. So a few weeks ago before we launched, I did an all-staff gathering, and the whole talk was clarity. I said, for so long we've talked about this in theory, but now it's practical. Now it's reality. I said for a long time, we've had two staffs that were working together in the same location. Now we're going to be two staffs in two separate locations. And so what does it look like? And so I do think fighting for unity and fighting for clarity is an ongoing process. We took our team through the process of what does it look like now that we're going from 1 to 2 locations. And then the fun news is that we just recently announced we're going to 3 in just a few months after our North Lakeland had launched. So I wanted to talk to them about, let's get our head around what it's going to look like so that we're all going the same direction.
Yeah. I love it. So, and I think probably, you know, one of your upper limits, right, of this growth and all this expansion is going to be getting leadership and getting talent, right? So you talked about having Isaiah. He was already on your team. How are you approaching cultivating, growing, and developing talent to facilitate this growth?
Well, first of all, I think that is a central mission of our church and of every church in America. Part of the discipleship process is identifying the gifts and talents within people and then unleashing them to use them. You have to be comfortable giving ministry away and getting out of the way so that people can do it. So leadership development is a big part of our church culture. For months and months and months and months prior to launching North Lakeland, I said to our team, we want to send our best leaders. So if we're going to send our best leaders, it means you better start working to develop and to discover leaders so you can unleash them on the next season. That's been the thing. Now, the second part of it is it's probably impractical to believe that you can hire everyone from within. So when we hire from the outside, we take an inordinate amount of time to vet a person because we want to make sure the heart and the DNA is the same. We use language at Access of blood type. So if you can remember middle and high school biology class, lots of different types of blood. They're all good, but they don't all mix together. And so there's lots of people that I've said, hey, I love you. You're an amazing person, amazing pastor, amazing leader. I don't think the blood type's the same. So like for our sake and your sake, let's not do this thing.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I love this because I remember Karen and I went into Northwest Los Angeles, built a team, and planted a church there. And we had the privilege to pastor that for 10 years. But listening to you reminds me of all the things that you have to do
Yeah.
in planning a church. So much vision casting and prayer and planning and raising sustainable funds. It's crucial to have that. And that's what I love about church planning. You have an entrepreneurial spirit. You can just build it from the foundation up, and it's amazing. How has this experience in your life as an entrepreneur influenced the way you approach sustainability? Because when you start branching out, it's going to start taxing a lot of the things that have been the standard for what you've been doing, but now you're adding more. How do you approach the financial sustainability? What lessons have you applied across both contexts?
It's so good. Well, I think this whole conversation from where we started to now ties together. Like, I'm starting from a place of, I want to do this in a healthy way. I want to take Eugene Peterson's quote and make it reality. We're playing the long game. We're doing this the long way. We're doing it the right way for the long haul. We're doing whatever we can to make this. It's same obedience, a long obedience in the same direction. That's what it is. And that's my goal. And so with that in mind, I'm doing everything I can as a leader. I know my gifts. I'm a starter. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a risk taker. I'm a let's go for it kind of guy. But I've surrounded myself with people who are leaders who love to pick it up and who love to run with the thing. That's my goal, is to have leadership in place that can take the vision and the ideas and let's take it so that we don't just start something and it fizzles out quickly, but we're starting something that's going to matter and last for a long time.
And you mentioned this a couple times in the story about how you're really focused on that healthy growth. Like, it's growth and you want the numbers, but you want it to be in a healthy way. Talk to us a little bit of some of the principles that you're using to achieve that. Like, what are some of the concrete things you're doing to say, okay, this is how I'm defining it and moving it forward?
That's great. Well, I think many of us make a mistake of looking at other leaders and we see their success and we assume it's an overnight success. We don't know what they did behind the scenes. One of the best analogies I've ever heard for good leadership is, do you remember the little kid game, Chutes and Ladders?
Yeah.
Chutes and Ladders, if you remember, you just kind of meander slowly.
Yeah.
And every once in a while you hit a ladder and you shoot up a level or two. And every once in a while, if you're not careful, you'll hit a slide, and you'll slide down. That's what a lot of leadership feels like to me. It's not all up and to the right. It's just long, consistent faithfulness. And that's what our story's been. And there's been a handful of times that we've hit a ladder and it feels like God's elevated us. And we can't explain it. We can't point to something, but all of a sudden 500 new people just showed up or 1,000 new people just showed up. And we're like, what do we do with this? And how does this work? And we have to figure it out on the back end. I would also caution leaders to say that you need to pay attention to the condition of your own soul. This goes back to health, because again, it is possible for you to lead something that is growing on the outside. We like to say healthy things grow, but unhealthy things grow too. And it's possible to be a toxic, abused, hurt leader and to lead out of that pocket of pain. And something around you can still grow, but what tends to happen is you tend to do something wrong and make a wrong decision, and you hit one of those shoots, and it can take you back whole seasons in life.
Yeah, and in business we talk about the difference between it's cash, right? So the cash flow, right? And so there's two methods to grow a business. You can either use leverage, someone else's cash, to grow, and it's fine, but you accelerate things, right? And all that kind of stuff. Or you do the slow game, right? And you kind of save up. And this is the difference really between McDonald's and Chick-fil-A, right? The reason why McDonald's blew up is because they leveraged themselves over the top, and it's slow. But Chick-fil-A has been growing from a cash basis. I think churches have the same thing. I mean, literally with cash as well, but also spiritually and with their things. There's things you can do as a church that's a leverage point, right? Maybe you present yourself a specific way. Maybe you start beating a drum, politically, or different things like that. And all those things become big lighthouse and everybody comes, but you're selling yourself to another master, right? You're debt leveraging yourself versus having your consistent principles that you save up over time, and then they kind of grow from there. How do you feel about that analogy? What does that make sense? How does that make you feel?
Well, you said two separate things. One is money and then one is spiritual. So on the money front, I think churches have to walk the tightrope of being opportunistic, and we need to be faithful, and we need to be conservative with our resources. But like, I grew up in a church that it was a big church that operated like a little mom and pop's church, and they would only do things if they had the money.
Right.
So I remember them raising money forever and ever and ever to build a building. They raised some of the money, they laid the foundation of the building, And then they ran out of money, so they stopped construction. And then over time, the foundation went bad, so they had to fix it. And the price of construction skyrocketed. So in my opinion, they shot themselves in the foot. But we've all also seen churches leverage so much debt to get ahead, and it's cost them in the long run. So the balance to me is, how can we be faithful with what we have, not overextend ourselves? Like, one of my decisions as a pastor is I'll never get up on a Sunday needing that Sunday's offering. I'll never manipulate people. I'm going to teach God's word about giving, but I'm never going to do it because we need money. That's a terrible way to lead. So you want to find that healthy balance. In terms of spiritual momentum, there's lots of guys right now that, in my opinion, are catering to a specific audience. I'll give you an example. In 2020, when everything was just a complete mess, remember? And it was a mess on every front, politically, socially. I mean, you name it, it was terrible. There was a pastor friend of mine who posted something right after the election, if you can remember the heated contested election. And he posted after the election was sealed, he said, "Mark my words, God has said he will replace Biden with Trump." And I remember reading that thinking, what?
Wow.
What are you doing? And then what I noticed was he had hundreds of comments, and every single one said, "Amen, preach it, pastor. I'm thankful to go to this church." And I thought, you have played yourself so far to one side that you're not reaching an entirely different group of people who think and vote differently than you. And I've just made this decision as a pastor that we're going to stay faithful, and we're going to stay in the middle. The middle's dangerous. The extremes are parts that are growing because it's easy to find a niche group who believes the same as you. But we're going to stay in the middle, and we're going to stay faithful with who we're called to reach, which is every person we can.
I love it.
Yeah. Final, as we close out our conversation, speaking of living in a chaotic world and all that's going on right now, and you're a discerning leader, what do you think tugs at people or keeps them engaged and invested in the local church and what the local church can do for people's lives?
That's so good. I think all of us, if we're not careful, will become spiritually nearsighted, which is, if you think about like your eyesight, nearsighted is when you can only see the stuff close to you. I preached this some time ago. I said, spiritual nearsightedness is when you only pray for stuff for you. The question I ask is, if God were to answer all of your prayers, would it change the world or would it just change me? And I think for a lot of us, that's where we live our lives, as me, my life, my family, my finances, my job, my. And there's nothing wrong with that. God loves you and wants to take care of all those things for you. I think true fulfillment, though, comes from taking our eyes off of us and turning it on to the world around us. So when people are engaged in church, that means they're serving, they're giving, and they've connected what they're doing to eternity. That's the big thing for us. Is our goal, our finish line is that every person who's a part of our church, when they go to bed at night, they say, that's how you live another day. And I just know that the rest of the world, they go through the motions every day. Wake up, go to the same job they hate, eat the same lunch, come home, watch the same TV shows, go to bed at the same time, and do it over and over and over again. When we can connect eternity and lives being changed to things that you do with your giftings and talents that God has given you, that's when church, that's when your relationship with God, that's when all of your spirituality will come to a completely different level of living. And that, for me, has been the secret. When we connect people's giftings and talents to eternity and they use their gifts to serve someone else, that's the game changer.
Yeah. So good. Grateful we can have this conversation today. Thank you for stopping by. Love you. Appreciate you. Again, you are a great friend to me and so many in our community and to this university. So thank you for that and what you're doing right here in Lakeland and of course way beyond, literally around the world, what you're doing. And we're so grateful for that. And thank you for keeping at it and staying strong and expanding and growing and influencing in powerful ways.
Well, if I can echo back the same thing to you, you're both my heroes, and I love this university, and I've told so many people what happens here in Lakeland is felt. There's aftershocks felt around the world. And so I hope that you will always connect the dots between what you're doing and lives that are changed literally around the world. So you'll always have a friend and a fan in me.
Thank you.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much. And if you want to stay up to date with Jason, you can follow him on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all the same handle, at I am Jason Burns. You can also check out everything new at Access Church by going to access.tv. And anywhere else we can get in touch with you, those two main places?
That's it, man. I try to stay off of it as much as I can.
There we go. Love it. Love it. Well, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time on Framework Leadership.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Framework Leadership. If you're watching on YouTube, now would be a great time to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you can get incredible leadership content right to your YouTube feed. You can also check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts every single week, Framework Leadership. And if you love great email newsletters, and I know I do, make sure you check out keningle.com and subscribe to the Framework Leadership newsletter. It's an incredible piece of content we put out every single week of amazing leadership resources right to your inbox. Make sure you check it out. You can also follow us on Instagram at Kent_Ingle, at Dr. Michael Steiner, on X at Kent Ingle, and on Facebook at Kent.Ingle. Stay up to date on all the incredible things happening on the podcast and at Southeastern University. We love you guys, and we love our followers and our subscribers. Thank you so much for listening to the Framework Leadership Podcast.